See you later, love. Just wait till you close the doors. But you forgot. Hello there, ladies, gentlemen and everything in between, and welcome to Behind the Weebs, a look at behind the scenes of SunnyCon Anime Expo, held in Newcastle and Liverpool now. This is episode 12. I'm keeping count, and since it is March and we are very, very busy at the moment, this is kind of pre-recorded a little bit earlier. But this is a look back on the first ever SunnyCon Anime Expo back in 2012 over March 24th and 25th. Yeah, so this we've touched on before in previous videos, like, you know, some parts about like the first SunnyCon. So I thought, you know, might as well. It's the anniversary. I think like 7, 8, 9 years ago. Time just becomes an irrelevant concept when you've been in the game this long. And I thought I'd just, you know, take a look back and go over the story of SunnyCon 1. And I'm wearing exactly the same shirt as I wore at that time, which it's seen better days. I should have like a picture somewhere in the corners of me back then. And yeah, it all started as, you know, SunnyCon. We said, oh, we could do this convention but better in Sunderland. And so began, and that was like 2010, so began our market research part of starting a convention. And this is one thing that's neglected by anybody who wants to start a convention. You visit a convention, well, the majority of people, I should say, it's not like, you know, by everybody, but the majority of people who come to me or the Donna and say, you know, how do you run a convention, how do you set up? We say, well, you're going to need a business plan, about 36 to 60 pages long document explaining, you know, how you're going to make a profit from, or even just breaking even from running an anime convention. And then you've got to go through lots of little different aspects of it. And for us, it took us about 2 years of planning. Back then, Labour government had just went out, and I'd just started up Tucky's anime back in 2009, I believe it was, just early 2009. And no, actually it was 2010. I'm incorrect there. In 2010, March 2010, because it was the 8th of March when I officially signed off. Back then it was the New Deal. And that was a right farce on back then. That's when Labour was in charge. God help anybody on universal credit these days. But I'd signed off and took his anime up and went to June and we went to SunnyCon, and then the seeds were planted. So I went out of my way to do a little bit of market research. For these things, you've got to do like your SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, others. You had to build a unique selling point, like, you know, what can your convention offer that no other convention business in the UK can? And for us, it was big name guests and an untapped like market in the Northeast, because obviously SunnyCon was there and the audience was starting to build and we had a groundswell. And all of the events, like literally all of the events bar, I think it was Ashinawa up in Scotland, was about 3 or 4 hours down the road. So we had people who went to conventions in the Northeast, or just in the North in general. We had people who went to conventions, but not many that had one like on their doorstep. And for us, we wanted SunnyCon to be that, you know, that first big like field convention in the Northeast of England. And after, like I say, about a year of market research, this was looking into what other events are going on, what they offer, what we can offer differently, their prices, our costs. And we went to Sunderland Council with the idea of, you know, well, we want to run this event, can we have Crowtree to hire out? And they were on board. They liked culture. We were given a representative whose son was doing a Japanese culture course in university, so she was kind of really understanding about it, and we put forward for grant money. and I think it was like the deal originally was that we get the hire of Crow Tree for free, but the council can slap their little things all over us and say, like, you know, oh, Sunderland Council, we're bringing culture to the city of Sunderland. This was before the hashtag 2021 City of Culture. And so we set about, and there was a lot of organisation, a lot of, right, well, we need to bring in tables into the leisure centre, what areas we're going to use, because for those, like, you know, who didn't know, Crow Tree Leisure Centre used to be like the centrepiece of Sunderland City Centre at one point. And ironically, when I was younger, I nearly died at a birthday party there because I went down the water slide and I didn't know how to swim. So that was a fun little thing. The place that nearly killed us brought life to the SunnyCon. A little bit of poetic irony, I suppose. And they had shut the centre down. It was getting decommissioned and that, and I was young and naive back then, and I thought, you know, well, we need like a venue in the city centre. We need like a kind of arena sized venue, and the Vaux site was free at the time, so I started a petition to get have an arena in Sunderland. And because, you know, it brings in concerts, it brings in events, and, you know, I wanted to grow my event to the size of the likes of MCMs, the Hyper Japans, the Los Angeles Comic Cons, Anime Expos. I want that kind of size, like hundreds of thousands of people to converge in Sunderland of all places. And looking back in hindsight, it was a bit naive to. I think it was kind of rose-tinted glasses for the city. At the time, there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, the council are corrupt. The council don't invest in the city," and the city has declined quite a lot. And we didn't really focus on the politics of the city itself, and we were more inwardly focused on, well, let's make this event stand out to the point that we'd attract a lot of people in. Infrastructure wasn't good, hotels were sparse, and I think we've only got like 4 or 5 in at the moment. So it was a tough sell, and it always has been a tough sell to sell Sunderland. And the irony of it is that we used to go to conventions and advertise to say, come to SunnyCon, where's Sunderland, and it's always, well, it's next to Newcastle, and everyone's like, oh, aye. Funny one was a Ted Baker cosplayer in Doncaster. He was like, no, my TARDIS does not stop in such common places. And I told him, well, he can shove his jelly babies then. But it was all fun, and, you know, we knew Sunderland didn't have, and it still doesn't have the best. I mean, I'm speaking now when I'm recording. Nigel Farage is walking down Hendon Beach, so it's not the place of intellectuals as such, and I think we know that. We know that for sure. So perhaps if I could do things again for the first year, I would probably have started up in Newcastle. That would have given us quite the solid foundation to go from. But we learn from our mistakes. We go through a lot of mistakes, and it kind of makes us better. So to the event itself, we started off as anyone would, with absolutely no idea of what we're doing, and there was originally just me and Donna and Sean. And as we like advertised that, you know, oh, we've got an anime culture convention, Rachel, who was at the time I believe she was head of the Anime and Manga Society at Newcastle Uni, or Northumbria Uni, one or the other. I hope she doesn't mind us saying that. And she'd started that up there, and she emailed and said, you know, I'd like to pitch in, and we're like, well, we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. we've got the basics of, we have a venue, and that's pretty much it. We want a lot, really, and you got to start somewhere. So eventually Rachel joined the team, and then it was a case of, we've got to advertise this event and we've got to get tickets. And the ticket option we went for initially was these little kind of like raffle book tickets. And we said, like, you know, you can pay online via my Tucky's Anime store. You can buy them via the website, and we'll post them to you. You know, you pay I believe it was £20 for a weekend ticket, or £10 to £15 for a day ticket. And we just, you know, we tore them off, kept the ticket stub our side end, and sent them away. And we learned quickly that Royal Mail was not the reliable source it would say it would be. To save on money, we just sent first class. You know, we didn't think, oh, we need to send it recorded. As time went on, a lot of people were like, I haven't got my ticket, I haven't got my ticket. And we were only expecting an attendance of 300, and I believe the law states for every like 200 people you need like one person looking after. So we thought, staff of 4 should be okay. And then we started other promotion things. We invited like local cosplayers up to the northeast. I believe I've got photos somewhere, they'll pop up. And we did promotions, and funny enough, I think like 2 or 3 of them cosplayers who showed up ended up being staff. So it was kind of like weird how, like, you know, you were there at the beginning and you know. So I'll have pictures up somewhere. And we were like, right, so we need guests, and we were like, we have no idea how much a voice actor costs. But all I know is I want to meet Ash Ketchum and I want to meet Vegeta. that was the bit. We said to each other, you know, we want Ash Ketchum and we want Vegeta. So after a bit of searching on the internet, we found the contact information for Veronica Taylor, who we contacted. I believe we contacted her directly, and we got quoted a price which was really reasonable. And she just wanted to come over with herself and her daughter. Her daughter was about 12 and in school at the time. I don't know if anyone has been to a convention where Veronica Taylor is. She's always got her daughter with her, and she's always like a bit mischievous and fun at times. And she was going to do studies on the beach at Roker, which has Cannonball Rocks. Interesting fact about geology in Sunderland, we actually have unique rocks to look at. So there was that, and then there was Chris Sabat, who we went through an agent, and we negotiated back and forth there. And it was a weird thing because we were speaking to Chris and Veronica at the event. It was post-event actually, and they were saying like, you know, they were a bit unsure, that like SunnyCon had never been heard of, and they were taking a risk flying out to like this first-time convention. And on the other side of things, like trying to sell it to fans, like a lot of people were like, no, they're not going to come. You know, Chris Sabat and Veronica Taylor to a first-time convention in Sunderland of all places. No, they're not going to turn up. To which we proved them wrong. So, and that was kind of fun. And we launched our website, which I remember, and this was a really memorable moment because we just launched the website. It was just a simple SunnyCon website. I can't even remember the layout or design. And we got like we paid somebody to make the website because I had no idea on web design unless it was HTML, which was like very arcane at the time. So we had that, and within 10 minutes of launching our website, no real information, just we're going to run a convention, it's in Sunderland, here's the dates. That was it. There was no information we had, just SunnyCon, it's happening. And we got a reply. Somebody was saying like, oh, I believe it was one of the anime societies or something for Northumberland, like quoted their chairman or chairwoman, and I'll paraphrase it here. It was basically, this is what I hate about conventions. This is absolutely disgusting. You know, they're going to set up and it's going to be full of faggots in Akatsuki cosplay, in Akatsuki coats, throwing glitter about and glomping everybody. It's everything I hate in conventions, and I'm not going at all. And we received this, and it was like, wow, that's really like, you know, all we've done is we've just launched a website saying that we're going to bring a convention to Sunderland. You know, such harsh words from somebody who doesn't even know us or doesn't know what we do. And that was our first like real negative experience. And I had the email saved to the side for future reference because it was like, yeah, there might be a Akatsuki wearing glitter throwing weebs, but they're our Akatsuki coat wearing glitter throwing weebs, and you know, we'll die for them. That's what you do for customers, and that's what you do for attendees. You know, it doesn't matter if like they rub one person up the wrong way and that one person just by happens to be a douchebag. you know, if you come to our event, you know, we will support your fun. You know, we'll feed into that little weeb inside. And obviously, I can't remember who it was because they're not worth remembering. So it was harsh, and it was just the start, because then we got into, we're trying to promote everywhere, and we're trying to do cross promotion with different events we wanted to promote at NemaCon. And I think it was kind of like an unspoken thing that the guy who was running NemaCon at the time didn't like us running SunnyCon, and he wasn't a big fan of SunnyCon. And a lot of like his staff came forward after like NemaCon fell through and said, like, you know, well, you know, he was always like kind of paranoid of what we were doing, if we were stealing ideas from his convention, or. And it's kind of weird, because like, well, all we want to do is focus on our event. We don't focus on, and it's a kind of an ethos we've took forward to like future SunnyCon events. You know, screw everyone else's event, screw everyone else's thing. Yes, do it for market research, but focus on your own event and focus on making that better. It doesn't matter if like another event is set up like within a week of you, or if another event's got like a guest that you wanted originally. You know, you move on and you make it better. And I think that kind of mentality is still there within the UK like convention community, especially Comic Cons and that. There's kind of like a tribal territoriality around things, and I touched on this before in a previous video on competition and rivals. It's like, yeah, that's business. That's the world. Things, if you're making money, if you're making a lot of money, or if you're seen to be making a lot of money, then somebody's going to try and do exactly the same thing as you to try and like cash in on it. That's the thing. That's capitalism, you know. And we didn't expect to have a lot of competition at the time. We knew that we were on the brink of an explosion of conventions. I mean, back then, 2011, 2012, you could count the amount of anime conventions and Comic Cons for that matter on like two hands. I think MCM at the time only had Birmingham, Telford and London, and that was it. And then after 2012 into 2013, 2014, Manchester had one, Belfast, Glasgow, Dublin, Birmingham had two then, like London had two. Showmasters, they started expanding out to places like Bournemouth. I think Essex had one, you know, and then everybody else, all the other small independent like kind of fan conventions and that, like setting up in leisure centres. Not saying like we kind of like mastered that, but I think we were kind of like leaders in it, because I can't remember many other events held in leisure centres at the time. And we come to the weekend of SunnyCon, and we get to the leisure centre, and it's a Friday, and obviously there's no leisure centre like things planned beforehand, so we have the whole Friday to set up, and we get a delivery of tables and chairs, and we get a stage, and the stage was about yay high. It was a really low down stage. You know, we weren't going grand stage. We weren't like a big convention. We didn't have the kind of AV capabilities. All we had was a little stage about this high, and the two like monitor speakers, and we were setting up tables, and into the side entrance of the leisure centre, it was unloading, and we had to carry these 6x2 tables, and the bloke who was delivering was carrying like 3 or 4 at a time. And well, I'm trying to keep up by carrying 2 or 3 if I could. We'll go down the stairs into the leisure centre, set the tables up. These are 6x2 trestle, and we're trying to get the layout, because we didn't have like a to scale model, and the centre was split in two. This side was traders and artists, and the other side we had the stage area, and that was a basic setup. That was it. That was as simple as that, and it was all set up by the Friday. Actually, we had a Japanese food cafe area at the back, I believe. Actually, yeah, at the back of the stage, like kind of area. And the Geek Show had set up, because they were doing interviews and podcasts. This was before I was a member of the Geek Show, and they were doing interviews with the guests. And then before that, it was the Thursday or Friday when the guests came in. We picked up Veronica Taylor on the Thursday, I believe. And they were staying over at the Marriott because it was like the only hotel in Sunderland at the time that was at least worth, you know, putting a guest of their calibre in. And for Chris Sabat, we got told that he'd arrived a day early, and we were like, oh, panicky, because like, our guests, he's not there, and we're not used to this. And he kept us informed though. We'd got his phone number, and he apparently checked into Newcastle, had a walk around Newcastle the day before, and he arrived in Sunderland, and we got told, oh, he's just got off the train, and he'd walked around to the McDonald's. So me and Rachel, we were like, ooh, we've got to go see him, meet him. Like, you know, he checked into his hotel by himself, and we thought, like, you know, we've got to be like proper British, like, courtesy, welcome, come, we'll chauffeur drive you to your hotel. And Chris was like, no, I can do everything myself. And it was refreshing, because, you know, we're like, oof, well, that was another stress off us, and it was great to see, like, a guest being independent. SunnyCon 2 kind of like brought us back to reality, but that's another story for another more controversial video. And for Chris, we'd walked in to the McDonald's, and he was there, and me and Rachel kind of like saw him, and we'd seen him back via pictures and that, and we kind of like saw him, we gave each other a look, and we kind of like fangirled a little. And it was just at that time that Chris had like looked up, and I think he saw us like squee. And we kind of had this look in his face of like, oh. so we introduced ourselves. And I mean, this guy was like the voice of our childhood. I mean, I'd just been overwhelmed by Veronica Taylor. It was another voice of my childhood. But for me, Dragon Ball Z, you know, it was one of them gateway animes. And it's just like, wow, you know, we were actually meeting the guest before anybody else, and he was very polite. He's down to earth. He's a right troll at times. And then we had two other guests to pick up. Was Masako, aka Lawrence Simpson, and he was down to earth. He was suggested by Rachel because she was into the abridged side of things, and she knew he lived in the United Kingdom. So we're like, well, we haven't seen any other conventions with abridgers. I mean, look at the convention schedule now. He's everywhere, and it's because he's a really great person who brings a lot to an event, and he works damn hard as well. I mean, people think like, oh, abridging, you know, you're sitting back on your backside, you're just copying over an already dubbed voice thing. It's not. He does a lot more than that, and he's got a complex like work schedule, and it's great to see his YouTube channel's absolutely shot up. If you haven't already subscribed, I suggest going over there now. I'll put the little button on the video. And he was like one of our first like main like non-voice actor-y guests, and he was a delight to work with. We put him in the travel lodge because we didn't have the budget for a lot of people at the Marriott. It doesn't mean he was any less like important, but it was like kind of budget constraints. We put him in good hotels now, so hopefully that's all fine and well. And he was there, and we had a Japanese culture expert, Yoshiko Moss, who came from Durham, and she did the tea ceremony, which was actually really well, like very aesthetic, and you learn a lot from like the cultural side of things. So we could say, like, you know, it's not just anime and manga, it's culture as well. So we've got all the guests in, everybody's in place, and the weekend actually starts. So we'd ordered in wristbands, just like papery wristbands, and a lot of things like we learned through the years is people much prefer the lanyards and plastic badges that they can keep as keepsakes. But you know, we're starting that they cost like thousands of pounds. Wristbands were like a couple hundred. So it gets to the morning of the event, and people are starting to queue at 6 o'clock. And we just woke up at 7. Luckily we were local. We'd got the bus in. Of all things, to just get travelling through the bus. And we got there, and we're standing in the reception, and all of a sudden this queue's like massive. It starts off at the entrance, and it curves around and around there, and then it gets to like a point on the ramp that goes up into like the Minister Quarter, and then it starts curving back around, down, and into the bridges, and we're like, there's a few more than 300 people here. And that's when the initial dread kind of sets in. And the bloke who was the manager of the leisure centre, I can't remember his name, unfortunately. I have a terrible memory, but he was fantastic help throughout. And it was basically like they would get people in 1 or 2 at a time, and if a lot of people bought tickets on the day, and we didn't bother to bring money boxes because we thought, you know, we've sold quite a amount on pre-sale, so it was a journey, and the rest of that weekend was kind of a blur. I was very busy, and we had karate demonstrations in the dojo part. We were filtering people through to the hall area, and then it was running timetables and the talent skit contest we ran. There was people who'd entered on the day that just signed up, and we just said sign up for cosplay and that. And we hadn't picked out judges beforehand, so we're like Chris, Veronica, random guy from the audience. We'd be our judges, and they were very, very helpful on it. All the traders area, they were all doing fine. They'd all set up and were selling great. It wasn't like an immense event by far, but for a first time convention, I think we did really well. I think I've got footage of us. Donna was cosplaying Redhead Shanks. She'd even have like the scar done. I'll have a picture up of that. There was one picture that was taken of me, like I say, this shirt. There was another picture of us when we clicked on that we hadn't really thought the cosplay contest through. And the prize was a huge, because like I say, I had a store at the time, a huge 4-star Dragon Ball plush signed by Chris. And I remember it was a Roshi cosplayer, who I think was actually Michael Curling, who a Roshi cosplayer won like first place. So we didn't have any ground rules. It was just a fun enter on the day kind of contest. So we get to the end of the event, and the one lots of memorable moments for me, but this one sticks in my mind, and it was, we get to the closing ceremony. Everybody, you know, it's kind of like this whole journey of like 2 years of planning and promoting and selling tickets and trying, and we actually got to the final tally of the tickets, and we'd announced, like, you know, we've had 901 attendees, and it's like, it's over 900. It didn't quite work the same as 9,000, but it was over 900, and that was 3 times as many people as we wanted to, well, we were expecting. We wanted like a lot more, but we say and go goodbye at the closing ceremony. Get to the point, it's like, thank you all for coming, you know, get out at the end, and there's like, we get a standing ovation off everybody present, and my body goes numb, and I'm reminiscing, thinking about it. It's like I have an out of body experience. I'm standing there. I don't know if it's the exhaustion, if, like, you know, my ego's just been inflated at a point that's floated away, but I'm standing there and I'm like that microphone in hand. I can't start shaking a little, and the applause just like washes over you, and it kind of fills you, and it's a hard to explain feeling. It's kind of like a euphoria of fills you up. And the manager of the Crowtree Leisure Centre comes over and shakes my hand and says, well done on a really well run event. And I kind of like, reality's back. I'm like, whoa. So well, what do we do now? And the leisure centre staff helped us set down. Everybody was out of the leisure centre. A few people came up after and like shook our hands personally and said they enjoyed the event. And it's, you know, even if we've changed one person's life and made them happy, I mean, I know we've changed, like, over the years we've changed like quite hundreds, maybe thousands of people's lives. We've got SunnyCon babies walking around the world, so it's always that feeling, and that end of convention kind of like, ooh. It's hard to describe, and that's what I'm living for now. That's, you know, forget like, you know, SunnyCon 4, forget the guests cancelling, forget the difficult guests at SunnyCon 2, forget every other like negative that's happened over the years. When we stand there at the end of an event, there is a feeling that can be never replicated, and every event's different, and when the round of applause or the chance of SunnyCon go up, or you know, just people come over and say, you know, I've had a really fantastic weekend, or you know, that's kind of like really, it's life affirming. It's worth living for. And if you go through the struggle that we go through every year, you know, if we can get like the financial stress side of it done, then that's everything sorted. So, you know, a lottery win, or if everybody just buys the tickets early, then that's like zero stress for us. We can now focus on making other things that'll make us stressful. But that was the end of SunnyCon, and after SunnyCon, we decide, you know, we'll get the guests together and we'll all have like this big meal. And the place, we had an all-you-can-eat called Dozo, and which is like changed from Lau Lau's to How How's, and I'm not making these names up, these are the names they've actually changed them to. And we went there for a meal after. Initially, that was on the Sunday. On the Saturday evening party, we had Sunny Rocks, which I think the event is still up on Facebook from the 24th of March 2012. There are 4 comments on it. One is of us saying that, you know, the Indigo Rooms, the pin on the Indigo Rooms on the maps wasn't correct, so we didn't want people going down the quayside when the party was just round the corner. The party was not really up to convention standards. It was just like a small gathering of people in a kind of rundown pub with a crap sound system, but we all had fun. And Chris Howard came along for a drink with us, and it was like an intimate, like fun kind of thing. We met a lot of like our good friends now. We met a lot of them on that night, and it was kind of really relaxing. It allows us a false sense of security for drinking before running the event the next day, but a McMuffin sorted us out on the Sunday morning for that. So after that Sunday evening, we all get round this table at Dozo, and there's all of us as a guests. Kemi Soloway was there, Chris, Veronica's daughter, Lawrence is there, and there was a few of the Lolita panel runners, and we're all just having fun, having food, and like just a conversation, and it was this surreal moment. And I was like, oh, I haven't got any of your signatures over the weekend, can I have you sign something? And at the end of Sunday, the only thing I had a pen on us, but I didn't have paper, and all I had was a wad of £20 notes. So I was like, can you just sign this £20 note for us? And I've still got it somewhere upstairs, framed away, is the £20 note signed by all the guests from SunnyCon 1. I think somebody graffitied on the Queen's face, so I don't know if that's still illegal. So I'm not going to show it. Just know it exists, but I'm not confessing to it existing. and there's a group picture of us all, which I love so much, because it was like the kind of feeling of fun and of unity, and I've always wanted that for the SunnyCon events going forward with everything. And yeah, so that's the story of SunnyCon 1, and it's been so long, and there's so much happened between then and now, not just for us but outside. You know, we've moved venues, God knows how many times, we've moved cities, we've had good guests, we've had bad guests, but we've had really, really good guests to cancel them out. And it's been great. It's been a journey, and it's something I would never change for the world. I mean, I'd probably change the crippling debt part of it, but that's something that can be rectified in time, and if a lot of people buy tickets. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining me on this journey down memory lane. I hope you've found it a little bit educational, and thanks for reminiscing. I shall see you on the next episode. Goodbye.